maybe.
All right.
I'm learning the game.
Learning the game.
You'll have to teach me. It's a game.
Okay, all right, so I wanted to go over what I do for meeting with real estate agents. Some of this you two have heard already, but I wanted to give you some stuff in writing. Also wanted to kind of talk through the logic and some.
I only have a half an hour, just so you know.
Okay, that's fine. Stacy, more of this for you also for the appointment. The big piece I'm going to spend time on is the realtor appointment and kind of going deep with them and getting them to say yes.
Okay, good. I have one of those next week.
All right, so first is the approach call. You and I have been talking a lot about this recently. I made 6 phone calls to 6 realtors in the last 3 days. I have 5 appointments. Now, one of them I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get to do any business with because he's really loyal to his current lender. Sometimes you get into one of those meetings and it turns out they're not really loyal. They were just trying to shut you down. But sometimes they are. But still, the first idea is I'm selling the appointment. I'm trying to get the appointment, not business. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to get into a face-to-face. I'm spending 5 minutes trying to get there. So the approach call, the people I picked up is I picked up a name of somebody who knew the real estate agent, and I got to drop that name in conversation. And I'll send you these scripts, but really briefly, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on it today, really briefly, it goes something like, hey Mark, this is Matt Lee calling. Hey, the reason I'm calling you, Karen Goodman gave me your name and telephone number. And Karen and I were having a cup of coffee on Friday morning, and I asked her, we were talking about her wine business and her kids. Anyway, the subject turned to real estate, and I asked her who she knew that she really liked in real estate, and you were one of the first people she mentioned. And I figured sooner or later Karen's going to introduce us to the same person, and I'm a mortgage lender. Sooner or later Karen's going to introduce us to the same person, and we're going to end up working together, and I thought good people should know good people. So I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee. I'd love to come by your office and meet with you. We can, if you want to do this, then we can go more in depth on how this works and how you build out a 200 person database. Does this sound familiar? This is how you got you got like 30 realtor appointments in January, the first
Can
year.
you just call the realtors for me?
No, you gotta do it.
Right?
You and I'll do one. You and I'll do one after Rachel leaves. Right?
I also have.
I had no trouble with this.
Yeah. Right. So
I mean,
you drop their name and use specific language. We can go deeper on this. That's not really the point of why we're talking here today.
Well, that's how I got Carl. That's how I got Jen. That's how I got.
So there's feedback from-
yeah.
okay.
I mean,
Right.
Carl is probably my number one person. I've gotten 9 or 10 loans out of him
Nice.
for the last couple of years. He's my big guy.
Yep. Okay, so you get the appointment. Great. What do? First of all, you want to meet at their office if you can. Why? Because you want to have an opportunity to run into other real estate agents. If you meet them in a coffee shop, that's okay too, but I try to go to their office. I try to bring something. I bring a cup of coffee to the receptionist if the receptionist likes coffee. Go out of your way to show kindness to the other people there, but you want to be there if you can, right? Be early. Don't show up 5 minutes late. If you show up 5 minutes late to the appointment, and if you have to, call them 15 minutes ahead of time. If you show up 5 minutes late to the appointment, you send the signal your fundings are going to be late also. So be a little bit early, hang out, and then bring something to them and to the receptionist, a cup of coffee, a book. I usually bring something with me that I'm going to leave as a gift of some kind. So this is not as vital as the first two. You can follow up with something after the fact, but that's a direction I try to go to it. Okay, so it's a 30-minute meeting. What you're trying to get to is you're trying to get to their core why. Why do they do what they do? What's important to them? What's vital to them? And what do they need in their relationship with a mortgage lender, right? By the way, I'm going to take this video and throw it on YouTube because I want to send it to Luke and Shelley and Eric also, so I'll point you at it after the fact. But what do they need? And you're looking for how it maps to their core why. So what do they need? Well, they need the money to be there on time. They want referral business back from you. They need for you to be accessible at midnight on a Friday. Whatever it is that they're going to tell you, you want to be finding those things out for 2 reasons. 1, so that you can meet those needs. And 2, if you don't want to meet those needs, so that you don't follow up with them and they don't become a client. Right? So part of this is not getting stuck with people that you don't want to do business with. Margine comes to mind. You may meet with Margine and decide this is not a train wreck that I want to be associated with. Or you might say, no, I can live with this. But you want it to be your choice, not her choice.
Right.
Make sense? Okay, so intro, first 5 minutes of the conversation. You don't just jump right in and say, let's talk mortgages, right? chit chat, get to know them, talk about them, ask them questions. Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. What brought you to Colorado? How'd you end up here? What do you do for fun on the weekends? What are you doing this weekend? I see the picture of, white tigers. Did you ever see Siegfried and Roy in Vegas? I see the picture on your wall, thinking of a woman at the IRS office that has albino tigers all over her cubicle. She was a nightmare, but still, you get the idea. You can look around and you want to talk about them. Don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about what's going on in your life or your family. You want them to talk about themselves. Start to turn it with how do you get into business. What's that?
I said, I did that. And then this morning it turned my realtor appointment into a 2-hour appointment.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. When you get toward the end, you can say, now listen, I really want to honor your time. I told you this would be a half an hour or 45 minutes. It's running over. Is that okay with you? Because I'm happy to set an appointment again later. And then if they say yes, then let it run 2 hours. It's fine. Right? A couple of the questions you want, how did you get into the business? That's sometimes a part of their why. And then, where does most of your business come from? If you know where most of their business comes from, you can help formulate solutions for them later, but this is a good time to pick up a couple of those things, but eventually you want the answer to those 2 questions. So, purpose of this is build a little bit of trust, build a little bit of rapport, be human, right? Get past the Klingon shields of, oh, I'm in a freaking mortgage lender appointment, and get to, this is a person who Karen really does like and trust, because Kelly seems like a pretty nice woman, and I'll go ahead and talk with her. Does that make sense? All right, so then you turn your transition. Your next step is to look for their core reason for doing what they do. My core reason for doing what I do, I get to be that dad. Or I get to be in the lives of my kids, and I get to do some of this stuff and pour into the people around me. I get to be at BNI and coach and mentor people at BNI. That's kind of my core why. If you know my core why, you can tie all of the other things that you sell to me to that. That's an anchor, right? That's a rock in the middle of my business that you can latch things onto, and they'll be much more likely to stick, for lack of a better way to say it, right? If my core why is because I want to make money so I can travel, you would answer questions differently or do things differently than if my core why is to spend time with my kids, or if my core why is to make a boatload of money and retire at 55, right? So, to dig deeper, they'll say, well, what do you love about what they do? Oh, I love the lifestyle. That's not good enough. Well, so what do you mean? What do you mean about the lifestyle? What do you love about the lifestyle? Oh, I love that I can take off any time that I want. Well, why is that important? You must be doing something with that time. Why is that important? Well, because I get to spend time with my family. I get to be that dad. Oh, really? It's important to be that dad to you. Yeah. It's my why. When you see them start to light up a little bit and get a little bit passionate, you know you're getting close, or you've gotten to it. Does that make sense? You can say, why does that matter? Why is that fun or appealing? Why is that interesting to you? You just keep asking why. If you treat it like a 2-year-old, I've got stuff I'll hand you from Todd Duncan in a little bit about this interview. He sounds like a 2-year-old. Well, why is that important to you? Well, why is that important to you? Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, why is that important to you? Until he gets to the root. He just asks the same question over and over again. I can't do that. It's not my style. I like to tweak it as I go, make it my own a little bit. Oh, I get why that's important, but what does that mean? Or, oh, I understand now what you're saying. Why is that important? Go a little deeper. Tell me more. Make sense? Okay. But again, you're looking for a core, something they're passionate about. Get to their why. This is their intrinsic needs. You're trying to know what their intrinsic needs are and feed back into that through the extrinsic needs. The extrinsic needs are what do you need in a mortgage lender? You can get this in about 5 to 7 minutes. The next piece is, what are your needs in a mortgage lender? You might ask that as, what do you expect from somebody you work with as a mortgage lender? You might ask it as, what's gone well, what's gone poorly when you work with a mortgage lender? What has to happen? What would you like to happen? At one point I said, what are table stakes that it's ridiculous to even consider being a mortgage lender without doing these things? And then what's really separates the pros from the amateurs? What are you looking for there, right? You're looking for several needs and pain points. Make sure you get clarity on what they mean. Hey, I need for you to be available. Okay, what does availability look like? Well, I need you to take phone calls at midnight, as opposed to, I need you to call me back by end of business. as opposed to, I need you to respond to your freaking emails by the end of the week, right? People have different definitions of available. People have different definitions of good communication. Good communication might mean I need you to send me a status update every day and call me at 6 a.m. It might mean I need you to send me an email once a week, right? Make
Carl's
sure
one
you
of those
know it.
panicky people.
Yeah, make sure you know it, right? Because it matters. Because like I was not good at communicating. I was great at communicating with Mark, but Mark Cruz didn't give me the fact that I needed to also communicate with Deb Falkenhand, and Deb Falkenhand had a different set of criteria for what she needed. So that's where that Thursday email came out of, was from Deb's needs, right? Now Deb thinks I'm the greatest thing ever, and she's introducing me to other real estate agents. So meeting those needs also can increase business down the road, right? You get to where you're really clear on one of these pain points, you say, okay, I think I understand that, what else? You keep going, what else, what else, what else, until they can't think of anything else. That's about it. That's really all I need. I need somebody who communicates well, I need the money to show up on time, and I need some business once in a while. Here's what they say they need. Here's what you'll hear. Results, right? The money gets there. Value, you'll sometimes hear that as rates, right? Availability, problem solving, efficiency, communication, professionalism, good service, referrals. This is pretty much the list. They all think they're different. This is pretty much all you're ever going to hear. They might say it differently, but it's going to fit in here someplace. What you're going to have when you go into the meeting is you're going to have a solution for each one of these problems that meets your style and your skill set, right? So the easy one, some of these you can tell stories on, right? Somebody says, I want you to have the best smoking rates in the world. My response on rates is, well, are you really, who's the believer of that? I'm telling you, I'm not beating the internet lenders that can't deliver. I'm not going to get there. So who's a good judge of that? Is it you or is it the client? Who decides whether? I've got one person, I've known her for years, we've done a couple of transactions together, she's all about rate. She's never going to send me her business in the long run. I don't waste a whole lot of time on her. But when there's a problem, she calls me because she knows I've got this and she knows I've got this, right? And I sold her on that instead. Most of the time the realtor will say the value is in the eyes of the borrower, not in my eyes. I know that things vary widely. I just don't want to be embarrassed. I can promise you I'll never embarrass you in front of your client. We'll make sure we take care of them, right? So availability, you want to know what that looks like. You might describe for them what good availability looks like. I've found in situations where I've said, they said, well, I want you to be available on the weekends. And I'd say, what would be my preference if I talked to your people before that? So that, because I like to be that dad. That's my why. Your why is travel. My why is being that dad. So I might take a phone call and say, hey, Mr. Smith, I'm so glad you had me call. Kelly said she gave you my name and telephone number. I wanted to make sure I honored that relationship that I have with Kelly, the realtor. Are you getting ready to put an offer in right now, or is this like in a week or two? Oh, it's in a week or two. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'm at the zoo with my kids. Can I schedule you an appointment? I know I have an availability of 10 a.m. on Monday morning. Can I put you in that spot? Now, here's the thing. As I have that conversation with the realtor about availability, and I say, I've got a slot on Monday morning. It's a time slot that I know that I can put you in, and I give them the script of, I'm at the zoo with my kids. This is social proof. The realtor knows that I will do this, right? Mm-hmm. So part of these things are social proof. If somebody says, I need good communication, and I say, here's a copy of the thing we send out on Thursday afternoons and slide it across the table to them, they know I didn't just make it up out of midair. That I really do have, that's why you got to know what the solutions are to each one of these problems for yourself when you go into the meeting, right? Because then you can say, oh, it's good communication is vital. Here, let me show you what we're doing for good communication. We do this video series, and here's...
I'm like, Carl loves
He loves the videos.
He's asking me who does them for us.
The cheesy little top of mind.
He loves them.
They're great. The online breakdown, all right, the point is,
Yeah, sorry.
social proof on these things, right? Either a story with details, that's social proof, because you just wouldn't have been able to make that up on the fly. Well, you think about it ahead of time, right? the collateral that you're gonna hand out, professionalism, you've showed up on time and you're dressed well. You know, sometimes they say, oh, I need professionalism, and I say, well, you know, I'm here in a suit and I was here on time. That's something you'll only get to over experience. I can't tell you I'm a gentleman. I have to prove to you I'm a gentleman, right? I can't prove to you that I always show up on time. I can tell you that the last time we blew a deal was March the 23rd of 2003. You notice the specifics? That's social proof. I know because it rocked my world. Let me tell you about how we always deliver and how we have good results. Last time I gave a lender letter to fail to close was March the 23rd of 2003. And here's what happened, and here's why. And I give a story. You need something that you're comfortable with in each one of these. Results, I use that. Value, I deflect. I talk about the value being in the eyes of the client, and I won't embarrass you. Availability, I talk about, I always return phone calls before I'm done for the day. That might be 7 p.m. or it might be noon, but I return phone calls when I'm done for the day, or I update my voicemail message. I will answer the phone on the weekends, but I might not have my computer with me, but I'll cross-sell you. Let's work that through. Problem solving, give examples. If they're about problem solving, my current example, y'all have had a nightmare alone at some point.
I've had many.
Right. I had one where the guy got thrown in jail for 30
I know
days,
that one.
15 days
That's
before closing.
awesome.
Oh,
He
bummer.
got thrown in jail for 30 days,
That
15
sucks.
days before closing. And I went into the sheriff, and the sheriff said, I said, I need for him to sign paperwork. And he said, he can't sign paperwork. He said, you can send it in. It's a 7-day in and a 7-day out. You're 15 days out. You need to get it in today if you want him to have to sign it and have it come back out. And I said, well, somebody has to be able to get to him. And he said, well, his lawyer can. And I said, his lawyer can sit down and hand him a pen and have him sign things? He said, absolutely. So I hired him a lawyer. And I had the lawyer go in and do the closing. Right? So if you can give a story like that, you can do, again, story for problem solving. Efficiency, how do you stay out of their way? How do you map into their business? That's another, you kind of got to prove it thing. Good communication, I used to talk about my 14-point communication plan, and I'd rattle off the things that we did. That flyer's a great one. You say, we have an automated system. One of the lines I use is, I can forget I don't even know my password on our CRM. My team takes care of it. A contract comes in, your name ends up in my phone, the contract close dates end up on my calendar, and videos go out giving status updates. And I don't even know my password because my team just handles it. So from a communication standpoint, they know they're going to get handled. So again, social proof. Professionalism, I use I can't prove to you I'm a gentleman, but I'm here in a suit. I was here early. Good service, that's another proof one. Referrals, this is the hardest. I have not found a spectacular solution for this other than giving them referrals instantly, like walking in with one. I have talked about what does a good relationship look like, right? This is the one I'm using currently that I'm not as happy with as figuring out a way to give them something, but I said, well, what does a good relationship look like? Because if your expectation is that I'm going to give you a referral for every referral that you give me, anybody that tells you that is either not a professional or lying to you. Because we make way less than you do on each transaction, and if we could do that, then we would be real estate agents. We would open up a real estate practice and we'd hire a bunch of buyer's agents, right? So really, let's talk about what a successful relationship looks like. I got a guy I've been working with for a long time. He closes 2 to 3 transactions a year that I send to him. And those come out of the vapor. I create those on my own out of my past client database. I market to my past client database regularly. I call them every 3 months and I have 2 conversations with them. We can talk about that scripting some other time. But I stay true to the tree. I have to refer the real estate agent who sent me to him in the first place. You got to know that if I generate business from somebody who's 3 layers deep that came from you, I'm going to try and cross-sell them back to you. Would you have gotten that business anyway? I would argue probably not. You're going to get some business out of your own tree that you would not have gotten were you not working with me. But also there are people who move, or people who got out of the industry, or people who piss off their clients, who say, I don't want to work with them again, who I can then refer to you. Now, if you and I do 3 transactions next year together, that you refer me 3 pieces of business, we're probably only doing 3 pieces of business. But if you refer me 15 pieces of business next year, I would expect that I would probably generate 2 to 3 transactions out of your past clients through my active telephone calls. And because we're working, I word this carefully because of RESPA, and because we're working so well together, because we have experience together and I will know how you operate, it will be in my client's best interests if I refer some of them to you as well, and there will be another 2 to 3 transactions out of that. We'd probably do 15 to 18 deals together, would be my expectation. That's what I would define as a successful relationship. So you got some social proof in there with some details, right, of how I'm gonna call the past client database. And you've got some truth, calling other people liars, but doing it delicately. If you're in your shoes, where you're not doing as much of that, you may not be able to address that one, unless you're prepared to make phone calls to past clients and go really prospect, right?
Not yet,
You're up in this area,
hopefully.
right? You're gonna nail results, problem solving, efficiency, professionalism, because you've got a background as a processor, and you should be selling what you're strong at. I've been a processor for ever. I was an underwriter. I see every file that comes through our doors. You know, your turn times get cut because they're my files. I'm gonna process them before they go to the processor. The processor's gonna look at them and be done because I know everything that needs to be there. And you won't ever get a no from me because I was an underwriter and I was an ops manager, right? You should be selling that.
Okay.
If they're saying, I expect referrals, you need to figure out a script for that. I don't have a good one for you off the top of my head. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You can use the past client in the tree, but you're also new in the business. If you had had this conversation with Lisa, this might have worked out differently. If you'd have done
I've
that
had
upfront, probably
that,
not.
I had that conversation with
Per-
Lisa
per-
twice.
Perhaps. She's also maybe just not that, that's not the kind of person she is. I didn't mean to get you lit up, I'm sorry. All right, so, people don't buy products or services. The only thing right now that separates you from me are the words that come out of my mouth and the expectations that they set, and the words that come out of your mouth and the expectations they set. Right? You gotta be able to deliver on what the expectations you set, but they don't buy products or services, they buy expectations based on what you've told them, right? So that trust level with the real estate agent, you're setting your expectations about how you're gonna behave. Don't promise them something you can't deliver on, or that you aren't going to deliver on long term. I got into the industry, Fred Now taught me about, he had a disc back when CD-ROM was big. He had a small disc that we would put listing presentations on, and we were putting listing presentations together for listing agents, including a website with a whole bunch of details about the property on it. As soon as I got busy, I wasn't able to do them because they were a giant pain in the butt, and the listing agents, I wasn't getting any business out of the listing side, so I just stopped doing them. And I hacked a realtor off pretty badly, because all of a sudden his listing presentation wasn't what he wanted it to be, because I wasn't able to get him the stuff on time, right? So now, another piece of this referral conversation that we talked about earlier, I say, a lot of times I'll say to him, one of the other things you need to understand is that I will help you generate business and work cooperatively with you, but there has to be something in it for me. And the reason there has to be something in it for me, as opposed to just like for instance on your listings, is that I know that I'll do it when I get busy, because I'm in a business. And if I can generate business for myself and for you, I will do that all day long. If all I'm doing is generating business for you when I get busy, you'll fall to the back burner, and that'll betray your trust, and I don't want to do that. So let's look for ways that I can be involved in what you're doing that's also good for me and my business, so that I can pour into you and you can pour into me and we can both be successful. All right, so, all right, you now respond, right? You go back through the things that they said. You keep, it's vital. It's going to be tempting to respond to each need individually as they bring them up. Don't. Keep asking them for what their other needs are until they say, I can't think of anything else. And then go back and respond to each one of them. Because if you respond to a need, the conversation will not turn, you won't get as much out of it and they won't get as much out of it, right? So in this case, let's say they said, let's say they said communication, availability, and problem solving. I'd say, okay, so from a communication standpoint, we have a video series that we send out at major deliverables, and we also send, here's a copy of it, we send this out on Thursdays. Does that meet your needs for communication to make sure everybody's on the same page? By the way, we send this to the listing agent, the buyer's agent, title company, so we keep the title company informed. We reach out to the title company, and I have a transaction coordinator named Jackie whose sole responsibility is to make sure that we're up to speed and everybody knows what's going on. Is that satisfactory, or is there something else that I would need to do there? No, that's great, Matt. It's way better than anybody else does. Perfect. You then talked about availability. Here's my situation on availability. I might be at the zoo. You have that conversation. You do your solutions. But you do all the needs, and then you do all the solutions. And ideally, you do all the solutions in reverse order of importance. You start with the thing that's the least important to them, and you go to the thing that's the most important to them. And then you tie it back, important, remember this, you tie it back, you root it to that original rock of what's their core why. I can see why communication would be important to you, Matt, that you know what's going on so that you can be present with your family when you're being that dad. That makes total sense to me why that would be important. I'll make sure that happens for you. You realize the power behind that, right? When you've said to them, I see what's really of value to you, and I'm going to make sure that I meet that for you. Okay, work them in reverse order. So what's the close? You get to the end and you say, I really think like there's a core match here. There's a match in values. There's a match in what we think is important. You think it makes sense for us to do business together? That's it. That's what I use for my sale. Almost always I get, yeah, we should, or sometimes I get, we'll keep in touch, or I'm still really happy with my mortgage lender. Okay, would it be appropriate for me to keep in touch? Be ready for yes or no. If it's no, it says, well, I still think I like you a lot. Good people should know good people. Could I keep in touch? And then we put them on a keep in touch campaign, and we can talk about what that looks like another time. If it's yes, then awesome. Let's set up our next appointment. We'll talk about how we're going to do some business building. I've got that for you. I do have one thing for you there for today. Talk about the business building. If your core values don't match, if your core values match, you can overcome anything. If they don't match, you're never going to make it right. So if your core values don't match theirs, if they said things like, it's all about the money, you got to close the deals even if you have to commit fraud to do it. You can say, it was great meeting you. I'm so glad Karen introduced us. Thanks so much for having coffee with me. I'll talk to you soon. And you just leave. It's benign neglect. You just don't follow up. Right? So you get to choose whether or not you want to take on the nightmare or not. This was, if you get a yes or if you get a no, what do you do with the yes? You set the next appointment right then. You set the next appointment for talking about business building or getting to know their team better or the next phone call, whatever it is you're going to do next. Know what your next step is with them. Know what you're going to take. We'll talk about what those would be in a minute or two. If it's no, then it's, I'd like to stay in touch. Would that be okay? We put them on a campaign. You might get them the app, right? You might get card tap on their phone. That's a value provider that you can bring. I'll show you that in a little bit. But you want, if you think that they're an agent worth doing business with, you just keep following up with them. Send them an email once in a while. Again, we can talk about that follow-up campaign in a little while. That is it. All right, so.
I have to go because I gotta get my dog
Yep.
to the bed at 2.
Okay, so I think you and I have talked about this. This is that interview that we just talked through. This is another piece of that and some questions that you can use. And this is what I'm currently liking for my next business building piece. Actually, I'm wrong. I have a business building piece for you.
For me?
You got it, it's the one pager. The business building piece is, I'm going to talk to you once a week. 15-minute conversation, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. The first question is, who have you talked to in the last 7 days that you don't think is going to use you? And I'm going to call them and tell them they're an idiot for not using you. I'm asking you for your sawdust. I'm asking you for the people who you have no skin in the game with, no risk on, because you don't think they're going to work with you. And what I'll do is I'll call them, I'll tell them how great you are, I'll tell them all the stuff that they're gonna get if they use you as a real estate agent, because I'm gonna be helping you. And cross-sell you again and tell them that you should call them back, or that they should call you back. Second question is, who are you showing property to that you haven't had a consultation with that I could optimize their purchase?